In this video lesson, you will learn how to draw an anatomically correct portrait.
The model for this portrait will be the marble statue carved by French sculptor Guillaume Cousteau. This sculpture is displayed in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. The skull and shoulder bones. Let's begin with the skeletal anatomy. The spinal column has two distinct curves, the curve of the neck region and the curve of the rib cage region. They are arched in opposite directions. At the top, there is the mass of the skull. The upper part of the skull is called the cranium. It encapsulates and protects the brain. The frontal lower part of the skull is the facial part. We see the model's head in profile. From this point of view, the head can be inscribed by a square. By dividing the height of the skull in half, we can locate the position of the eye socket. The ear channel is located right above the first vertebra of the spine. Above it, there is the cheekbone arch. The hinge of the lower jaw is located just in front of the air channel underneath the cheekbone arch. Right behind the air channel, there is the bony process on the base of the skull. This is the place where the neck muscles attach to the skull. The cranium section of the skull consists of 8 bones. They are fused together and form the cranium dome and the cranium floor. The facial part of the skull is formed by 14 bones. The lower jawbone is the only bone of the skull that moves. The U-shaped tongue bone is located underneath the lower jaw. The neck region of the spine consists of 7 vertebrae. This number is not unique for humans. In fact, many animals have 7 bones in the neck spine. The very top vertebra is called the atlas because it holds the sphere of the skull. The joint between this vertebra and the skull allow the head to rotate up and down in a nodding movement. This is the first pair of ribs. It has a circular outline and appears, in perspective, as an oval. The axis of this oval is slightly tilted downwards. At the front, this pair of ribs is connected to the top part of the breastbone. Just above the first rib is the collarbone. Its inner side is also attached to the top of the breastbone. The collarbone is curved. The inner half goes along the rib and the outer half is bent to follow the shoulder axis. We see the second collarbone in perspective and therefore it is quite foreshortened. At the back, the first pair of ribs is connected to the first vertebra of the rib cage region. In the front, the second pair of ribs is connected to the breastbone in the place where the breastbone, head, and body meet together. The frontal portion of every rib has a softer and more flexible structure. It is called the cartilage. There are 7 true ribs that are directly attached to the breastbone in the front. With every following rib, the rib cage becomes wider until it reaches the 8th rib, where it is the widest. The outer edge of the collarbone is connected to the shoulder blade in the part that is called the acromion of the shoulder blade. This acromion hangs above the shoulder joint, protecting the head of the upper arm bone. This head has a round shape about the size of a golf ball. The upper arm has one bone. It's called the humerus. The groove next to the humerus head is the place for a muscle tendon. Next to this round head, there's a bony projection of the shoulder blade, which looks like a bird's beak. We will examine all major muscles of the shoulder region in the next video. To depict the three-dimensional nature of these bones, I will apply a watercolor wash. For this purpose, I will use a single color tint. Such technique is called the griselle. It is drawing paper and, strictly speaking, it is not really suitable for watercolor as it will buckle when wet. I am using a very old but reliable squirrel brush. It holds watercolor well and is a perfect tool for such washes. If you are drawing along with this video lesson, the watercolor step is completely optional. You don't have to tint bones unless you want to try how it feels. We begin with the muscles of the human head. The muscle of the forehead extends from the hairline to the brow ridge. This muscle is actually the frontal portion of a much bigger muscle that spans from the brow ridge to the back edge of the skull. Another portion of this muscle is located on the back of the head. Between these two portions, there is a wide, flat tendon that covers the entire top part of the skull. This forehead muscle can produce different expressions on a face. Contraction of both left and right portions of this muscle elevates the eyebrows, which gives an impression of surprise or disbelief. When only one side is contracted, one eyebrow is lifted. This arching of the eyebrow expresses bemusement or distrust. In fact, not every person can produce such action of the forehead muscle. This muscle can also lift upward the inner corners of the eyebrows, making an expression of sadness or grief. The side walls of the skull are covered by a flat, fan-shaped muscle, which inserts into the process of the lower jawbone. This muscle closes the jaw and retracts it. There is another muscle that is mainly responsible for closing the jaw. It is located on both sides of the lower jawbone. This muscle is easy to spot when a person clenches the teeth or chews something hard. It can indicate emotional tension. There are three portions around the air channel of the muscle, which is actually obsolete as humans lost the ability to move their ears in the direction of sound. I actually met one guy in school who was able to move his ears slightly. It was just a funny trick. It had no practical purpose. Around the eyeball, there is a disc-shaped muscle. It has two parts, the thicker part that goes around the eye, and the slimmer one, which is located inside the eyelids. The thicker fibers of the circular eye muscle squeeze the eye shut. This muscle is in action when someone squints or winks. The slender and more delicate portions of the eyelid gently close the eyelids when blinking. There is another important muscle of the human head that has a circular shape. This is the muscle of the mouth. This muscle closes the lips, pulling them together. The trumpeter's muscle goes horizontally sideways from the corner of the mouth. This muscle pulls the angle of the mouth straight back, compressing the cheeks and lips. It is used when a person is blowing a trumpet, thus the use of its common name. There are four muscles on either side of the face that begin from the cheekbone and insert into the upper part of the mouth muscle. The muscle, which is the closest to the nose, elevates the wings of the nose and pulls upward the middle portion of the upper lip. Three other muscles are also pulling the upper lip upward, as well as stretching it out. Working separately and together, they can produce a wide array of emotions from disgust to smiles. On either side of the nose, there are the nose muscles that are quite difficult to detect. They compress the nostrils and pull the nose slightly downward, which slightly enlarges the nostrils. Near the root of the nose, there are a couple of muscles that depress the inner ends of the eyebrows, producing horizontal wrinkles near the root of the nose. These muscles display expressions of annoyance, anger, or intense concentration. Here is the muscle that pulls the corners of the mouth downward. It participates in the expressions of sadness or disapproval. Next to this muscle, there is another muscle that begins at the lower jaw and inserts into the lower lip. When contracted, it pulls the lower lip downward. It is an important muscle as it participates in speech. Underneath the lower jaw, there are a couple of muscles that connect the lower jaw, the tongue bone, and the base of the skull. These muscles help open the lower jaw as well as elevate the tongue bone when swallowing and speaking. Here is the Adam's apple, cartilage, and the windpipe. This structure is also known as the voice box. Here is the top portion of the back muscle, which, among other bones, also inserts into the base of the skull. The muscle of the neck has two heads. One begins from the top edge of the breastbone, and another from the inner part of the collarbone. These two portions insert into the bony process and base of the skull, behind the air channel. Working together, these neck muscles bend the head in different positions, forward, backward, and sideways, as well as rotating it from left to right. The trapezium muscle covers the rear side of the neck. This diamond-shaped muscle begins from the base of the skull and vertebrae of the spine and inserts into the outer part of the collarbones and spines of the shoulder blades. The front of the neck is covered by thin, flat muscle that is located between the collarbones and the lower jaw. There is a muscle that connects the ribs between each other. On the side of the torso, there is the muscle that has 8 or 9 digitations that start from the side parts of the rib and insert into the inner border of the shoulder blade. The main function of this muscle is to move the shoulder blade. Here is the important muscle of the upper arm, called the biceps brachii. As indicated by its name, it has two heads that begin from the shoulder blade. The tendon of one head goes along the groove on the upper arm bone. This muscle occupies the entire front portion of the upper arm. Its main action is to flex the forearm. The back portion of the upper arm is occupied by the triceps brachii, which extends the forearm. Here is the chest muscle. It has 3 portions. The top portion begins from the inner half of the collarbone and travels diagonally downward. The middle portion begins from the breastbone and travels horizontally sideways. And the third lower portion begins from the 6th and 7th ribs and travels diagonally upward. These 3 portions insert into the upper part of the upper arm bone. Fibers of this muscle overlap each other near the place of insertion. The chest muscle moves the upper arm bone. It participates in the actions of adduction, flexion, and medial rotation. This is the important muscle of the shoulder girdle. It is called the deltoid. It has a triangular shape. This muscle consists of 3 parts: the frontal portion, the side portion, and the back portion. It begins in front of the outer half of the collarbone. The side portion begins from the outer edge of the shoulder blade, and the back portion begins from the shoulder blade spine. The deltoid overlaps the chest muscle and inserts approximately in the middle of the upper arm bone. It assists in the actions of raising the arm horizontally, which is abduction, and raising the arm out in front of the body, which is flexion. It also contributes to the action of moving the arm back behind the torso, which is extension. This concludes the review of the main muscles of the head, neck, shoulders, and upper torso. In the next video lesson, I will show you how to use this anatomy knowledge for drawing a realistic portrait. I will do a sketch in the same scale as we did the bones and muscles drawing. First, I mark the outmost top, bottom, left, and right edges of the head. This is to ensure that the scale of the portrait will be similar to the previous drawing. I mark an ellipse, which is the base of the neck. It, in fact, has a circular shape, but in perspective, it appears as an ellipse. The base of the neck coincides with the first pair of ribs, which is not horizontal, but tilted at about 15-degree angle. This is why this ellipse also has a downward slope. The outline of the back of the neck follows the trapezium muscle, the top portion which covers the rear side of the neck. The deltoid muscle gives us the outline of the shoulder. Below this muscle, the outline follows the triceps brachii. The collarbone spans horizontally from the pit of the neck to the acromion of the shoulder blade. This bone is an important landmark in our portrait. I apply very light pressure on the pencil. It's a waxy red pencil, which is quite difficult to erase, so it is better to avoid mistakes rather than fixing them. From the pit of the neck, I mark a vertical virtual line in the middle of the chest. Here, you can see that the abdominal portion of the chest muscle travels upward, while the collarbone portion of the chest muscle is pointing downward. The cross between portions of the chest muscle happens near the armpit. Here is one important proportion you need to remember when drawing a chest. The height of the breastbone is equal to the length of the collarbone, which, in turn, is equal to the height of the face. The diagonal line from the neck pit to the nipple is at the same angle as the line from another nipple to the edge of the shoulder. Such a diagonal line is also parallel to the frontal edge of the deltoid muscle. Of course, this rule works for the anatomy of a male model. The neck muscle is also an important landmark in our drawing. The sternal portion of this muscle goes from the top of the breastbone to the base of the skull just behind the ear. Measuring the length of this muscle, we can define the bottom edge of the ear. The distance between this mark and the bottom edge of the chin is the same as the distance between the base of the nose and the eyebrows. It helps us to place the nose in its proper position. Here is the proportion to draw the mouth in correct place. The distance between the base of the nose and the line between the lips is twice as small as the distance between the lips and the bottom edge of the chin. According to classical proportions, the upper lip is protruding further than the lower one. The horizontal line of the eyes is dividing the height of the head into two equal halves. The eye is essentially a ball that sits inside the eye socket with eyelids and the round eye muscle wrapping around it. The upper eyelid is slightly longer than the lower one. Here, I measure, once again, the correct position of the eye. It is located exactly halfway from the top to the bottom of the head. The top edge of the ear is positioned on the same level as the line of eyebrows. The vertical axis of the ear is not strictly vertical, but is slightly tilted backward. The ear's outline is defined by its outer rim, which is called the helix. It resembles the character C. The inner rim, or antihelix, resembles an arched character Y with two hands pointing upwards. The earlobe occupies approximately 1/3 of the ear height. The ear hole is protected by the tragus. When drawing a portrait in profile, you can use the following proportion to locate the ear correctly. The distance from the chin line to the nose line is the same as between the outer corner of the eye and the ear. The angle of the jawbone is on the same level as the line between the lips. The portrait is already taking shape. I will mark the hairstyle to complete it. When drawing a portrait in profile, or a 3/4 view, keep in mind that the ear channel is located just above the first vertebra of the spinal column. I will explain why this fact is quite important for you as a fine artist. The first vertebra is called the atlas. Together with the base of the skull, it forms the joint between the neck and the head. At this joint, the head is rotating up and down. Because the ear channel is positioned very close to this joint, it can be used as the axis around which the head is rotating. You can do the following experiment. Stand in front of the mirror and put 2 index fingers in your ear holes. I know, it looks funny. Now, let's rotate the head up and down. You can notice that your fingers are staying in the same position, so it is the axis of the head. You may ask how to use this information for a portrait drawing. When drawing a head in a tilted position, as we have right now when the head is looking slightly downward, you need to make sure that the level of the eyebrows is lower than the top edge of the ear. The opposite is also true. When the head is looking up, the level of the eyebrows will be higher than the top edge of the ear. The same goes for the levels of the nose line and the bottom edge of the ear. Of course, when the head is looking straight forward, the top edge of the ear and the eyebrows will be on the same horizontal level. If you miss some details, no worries. We will cover the anatomy of the head once again in the next video lesson.
Do you want to discover the secrets of how to draw human figures and portraits in a realistic manner? Do you want to improve your drawing skills? To be a proficient fine artist, you need a strong knowledge of human anatomy. Anatomy is a very important topic for an artist. Learning it, however, can be a daunting task. There are more than 200 bones and 300 muscles in the human body, as well as many joints and ligaments, and they all come with Latin names. Even thinking about learning anatomy is intimidating. That was before. Now you have a solution. If you want to learn human anatomy easily, the Anatomy Masterclass is for you. It's a perfect solution if you don't have much time for learning. The Anatomy Masterclass is designed to improve your figurative drawing skills. There are many anatomy classes, but this course is different. Unlike in contemporary art colleges, the course tutors will draw figures and portraits in front of your eyes while explaining all you need to know about the proportions, bones, and muscles of the human body. You'll see the complete process of drawing figurative artwork. In this course, you'll find essential information, including proportions of the human body, head and face, skeletal and muscular anatomy, constructive principles of figurative drawing, how to draw realistic figures and portraits step by step. It is very easy to study in the Anatomy Masterclass. Just sit back, relax, and play the video lessons in order. You may pause the videos at any time and make a sketch or two. You don't have to learn Latin terms. Most bones and muscles will be referred to by their common names. You're an artist, not a doctor, so you'll only learn those bones and muscles that influence the shape and construction of the body and are essential for figurative art. You also don't have to memorize all the proportions and anatomical elements the first time you see them. The information will be repeated over multiple videos. You'll get all you need to know with no extra work on your end. This course was created by professional artists and art teachers, Vladimir London and Natalie Ritchie. Vladimir and Natalie are internationally published authors, artists, and the creators of the Web Art Academy and Drawing Academy. Today, you can benefit from their extensive artistic knowledge. In the Anatomy Masterclass, you will receive lifetime access to all 25 anatomy video lessons, a free app featuring three-dimensional models of all anatomical systems for both male and female bodies, multiple bonuses, art books and albums, an easy way to learn human anatomy for artists, information on the proportions of the human body, head, and face, information on the skeletal construction of the human body and head, details on the origins, insertions, and actions of muscles, step-by-step demonstrations on how to draw figures and portraits, unlimited personal support from the course tutors, the Anatomy Masterclass graduation certificate upon completion of the course. Here's how you'll benefit from the Anatomy Masterclass. You will learn the classical proportions of the human body, head, and face, and it will help you to draw beautiful figures and portraits and avoid common mistakes. You will learn skeletal and muscular anatomy, which will help you to draw realistic figurative art from life, memory, and imagination with confidence. You will discover master secrets and traditional techniques of figurative art that will help you to improve your drawing skills. Understanding human anatomy will help you to improve your art skills, create better pieces, attract more commissions and higher prices, and earn recognition. Here's what our students say.
I truly recommend you guys to enroll in the Anatomy Masterclass, because there you can find all the useful information. For me as a foreign student, this course was quite easy to understand, and it was such an inspiration for me.
The anatomy class is a great class because it teaches you how to study the anatomy, how to study the bones, the muscles.
I learned so much, I can't say thank you enough, so it was a perfect solution for me.
This course provides comprehensive information about the human anatomy in a very easy and friendly way. Here I can learn at my own speed, and I can repeat lessons whenever I want.
Here's how our students' drawing skills improve. You can see that after watching the Anatomy Masterclass video lessons, our students really get what it takes to draw anatomically correct figures and portraits. Your drawing skills will improve as well. The Anatomy Masterclass delivers a great value. Each of the 25 video lessons is worth $99, totaling $2,475 in value. However, today you can get the complete course for only $97. This is less than the price of one video. Learn all you need to know about human anatomy for artists easily. Click the Add to Cart button now. Don't wait! It's time to take action. You're just one click away from discovering the secrets of human anatomy for artists. After payment, you'll be redirected to the account setup page and will receive full access to all video lessons and bonus materials immediately. Click the Add to Cart button below and enroll now. This course delivers a great value, but the price will go up in the future. Take full advantage of this introductory offer right now. See you in a couple of minutes after you've set up your account.